Welcome back to the class, everyone. Thanks to all the changes that CG's been making over the last couple months between accelerating gear and the crate raid changes, it's never really been easier to take characters all the way up to gear 13, but it's creating a larger crunch for relics. So it starts to beg this question, what teams really don't need relics to function? So that is what we're going to be talking about today, is the top 10 teams that, while they probably do benefit from relics at a higher level, they get to beat new teams, they have an immense value that comes at only gear 13 or even possibly lower due to the mechanics of how their team works, whether it be because they work entirely off of turn meter and don't really need the survivability stats, or because their damage is through max health damage, they don't need the offense stats, or whatever it is. These are the ones that are going to kind of fit the bill. So go ahead and get started. When I think a team that can punch up incredibly high without needing to have a ton of relics just sunk into the team, I think Imperial Troopers. The first one that comes to mind, I've seen myself do it back when I had them at gear 11 or gear 12 or gear 13, and I see numerous people always make comments about it in my comment section or in Discord. The highest team that they're beating with just gear 11 or gear 13 troopers, and the reason why is once they get going, once the troopers start moving, they get a very large amount of turn meter from Veer's lead combined with Piet's unique Zeta that is constantly giving out buffs, and the team just really never stops going. And to help benefit this even more, they're gaining offense every single time they take a turn or assist due to the Emperor's Trap Zeta. So you get all of this offense going without having to really juice your characters all the way up to Relic 8 to be able to get the flat, or not the flat offense, but the base offense that would come in their kit like normal. You get that through the mechanic of how the rest of their kits work via uniques and leads and things like that. So very beneficial, very good squad. You do end up relicking some of these characters eventually just because they are a part of a lot of really crucial farms like Sith Eternal Emperor or Executor, but still knowing that you can start to get a lot of value out of this team before you have to do those things is very nice. I do eventually need to take them up to R5 just so I can start using data crowns with them, but for a lot of people that's just kind of irrelevant. Next up is going to be the Finn team, and this could apply if you don't have a lot of the components of this team and maybe you have a JTR team because you went after JML. They're going to have a very similar effect. So both what this and the JTR team do is they function highly off of turn meter as well as exposed damage. One of the nice things about exposes is they are max health damage, meaning if a lot of the characters on your team are really low geared, like Zori, you don't have to rely on these base offensive stats to pull the weight to be able to get through and annihilate your enemies, because with all the exposes that you're getting on the team and stacking offense with them, you're going to be able to take them out without actually having to have the damage from the rest of your kits. And there is just a lot of turn meter on this team. They used to actually have a lot more way back when, not really important to talk about, but they get a little bit of turn meter from Finn's lead. They get turn meter from how Rose works. I guess if you have her GAC Omicron, that helps a little bit, as well as Zori giving turn meter. Finn will push back the turn meter. Resistance Hero Finn can throw his, I think it's a bonus turn, or it's 100% turn meter. Either way, he'll be able to pass the turn to someone, and they can just keep repeating this process. It's pretty nice. The team overall has a lot of legs. If you had to go after Rey, or really even if you don't have to go after Rey, this team has a lot of viability, at least when it comes to GAC and overall PvP viability. Next up is going to be Iden. Iden actually might be the most important when it comes to her viability in GAC, because a lot of it, and I've been told that she does very well in Galactic War, and that's like not sarcasm, like that's actually important for beginning game without the Omicron, because you can't use the Omicron in Galactic War, but she has usability outside of that. But most of the team being this low in relics, or not low in relics, but low in gear, they are able to beat a lot of other teams. One of the teams that I consistently take out with what I did when I saw it more in defense was Relic Mon Mothmas. I will say I did have a lot of trouble once they started to get defense or armor crons. I just didn't have the armor pen to be able to punch through it without the relic levels. But even before that, they were able to do stuff. And they can beat a lot of other teams that are attacking out of turn because of really the broken nature of this Omicron, where they're getting 35% max health and protection and then constantly recovering and getting turn meter whenever those attack out of turns are happening. Actually, this last 3v3 GAC, I brought on my gear 12 Iden versus a Relic Titan that didn't have the Omicron, and we won. So definitely doing a lot of work there in regards to the Omicron. Next up is going to be Night Sisters. So we're cheating with this one, but I'm gonna let it slide because I think it's still really great value. If you are willing to take Daka up to R5, you can really leave the rest of the team lower gear. Asajj, you probably do want gear 12, just because she's going to be the one that's going to need to deal damage at some point, assuming the plague can't kill them. But how this team works is Daka is going to gain a huge amount of health every single time that the allies die. And then on top of that, Mother Talzin's lead is going to be able to apply Plague, which is more max health damage, and then Asajj will be gaining offense, or is it offense and crit damage, with her Zeta here that allows her, yeah, it's critical chance in offense every single time someone dies or revives. I forget the exact terminology. One of them has one of them has the other, and you just end up getting to tear apart teams that are a lot stronger than you, because Doc can keep reviving everyone despite them being very weak or undergeared or whatever it is. The Omicron is not necessary on Asajj. It is very nice. I personally like it a lot, at least for an offensive team. The team really struggles on defense, at least until you get Marin geared up, which I myself haven't because she's very new, so I haven't had the time to farm her up. But overall, like I said, the team can do a lot, and it's really probably also worth mentioning that the team is really good in the assault battle they have. This crew, I mean, even lower, I've seen lower geared, it's probably really hard, but you can beat the first 2 challenge tiers, so you can get relic material already for this and start building up relics on your other teams, because honestly, Night Sister just kind of suffice at this current level, or at least they do for me right now. Next up is going to be TM is the name of the game. This is going to be a very similar concept to that of the Finn team. Mara Jade has one of the highest base speeds in the entire game, so she can go out in front. You do not need to have a 371 Mara Jade. You just need to have something faster than whatever your opponents are using, which, yeah, that's kind of irrelevant. Her base speed is very high. Whatever your best mod speed set is going to naturally be higher than what it would be on another character. That's kind of the point we're trying to make. And then once they get going, as long as you have the leadership Zeta on Emperor Palpatine, you'll start to get 5% turn meter per debuff, and almost regardless of what, not regardless, but you have a lot of options for sides on this team as to who can use debuffs. Like Vader's a ton of debuffs. Royal Guard, I guess, has some. Thrawn really doesn't have any. Mara Jade has a ton. Grand Moff Tarkin? Yeah, I think that's his name in game. He has a ton of debuffs as well. You have several options. There's also some other Sith characters that can do it that typically get pulled away, but if you're on kind of a budget roster trying to make things work, so it's another option for something you can throw in there. And again, you don't really need to have them super high geared up, because if the enemy never takes a turn, it kind of just melt them away, and then Palpatine is able to do max health damage against Jedi and Rebels, and then eventually Vader can probably get a really nice coin blade off of someone, even at a lower gear level, or maybe you don't even use Vader in there because he can do other things on his own. Next up is going to be the boss team. So we don't have really, we have a little bit of max health damage, but we don't have a lot of max health damage here. What we do have is a Disintegrate. Once you get contract with Mando, he can just blow someone up, and you didn't really need to have any offense from Relics to be able to get the team to work. It just does, because insta-kills are insta-kills. The other thing that I really like about this, with Zam in there, you get huge amount of speed, so you can start going before the enemy team even moves. You can get contract, and a lot of teams out there, not all, but a lot of teams out there typically have one dedicated, really strong attacker. Like on a Dash team, it would be Dash, or a Bam team, it would be Bam, or maybe on a Darth Revan team, it's Darth Revan himself. And if you're able to come in with this and immediately get contract before they move, you kill that large attacker. Even at lower gear levels, you can kind of weather the storm throughout the rest of it. And even if you can't, you took out probably one of the most important characters. So overall, very good team. I like Dengar in here just because he's good for survivability. Whenever he uses his AoE, it's pretty much 100% heal because of how Bosk's lead Zeta works, where they get 5% health protection whenever a debuff went out, whether it was resisted or whether it was applied. So very good team to have even below Relics. I do like to have them a little bit. This is a team that's going to eventually benefit from Relics, just because Mando can't really take a hit if the enemy does get one. And in 3v3, that actually happens a lot. I've really enjoyed Grief and Mando at Relics, specifically because of 3v3. So this one is also cheating a little bit. So you don't need any Relics for this team to be relevant for most people. However, the reason this team is good isn't because they have some super secret like max health damage, or because they have a ton of survivability through another means. The team is just stupid good. If we go, I mean, we can go on and on about the details of Savage's Omicron, about how it pretty much makes him invincible, gives a ton of turn meter to the rest of the team. Treya's as well makes them very hard to kill with the amount of bonus protection they get per debuffs. They get turn meter. They do have an Annihilate, so I guess even without the broken nature of Darth Treya and Savage, this team does have a capability of being very good even before they make it into Relics. I guess one other thing that is worth mentioning is when we look at Nihilus's lead, or not his lead, his unique, he gets max health stacking every single time one of his allies, Darkseid or Treya at least, are inflicted with the debuff. So you don't have to have him super high up and super tanky if you're worried about him dying, because he'll just keep stacking and stacking up on that max health. I guess they get a max health damage, the enemy can't, but at the end of the day, I mean, Gear 12 or Relic 5, max health damage is max health damage, so that's kind of irrelevant. Yeah, but the team is just really good. You don't necessarily need Talon here. I like her because it makes it a lot harder to go after Treya to get rid of the effectiveness of the Omicron. And yeah, even at Gear 12, it's doing a lot of stuff, but this is probably the best example of a team that you want at Relics at some point, just because it's so stupid good. Next up is going to be QuiGon Jin. This is going to be focusing back in on GAC a little bit. Padme is okay at lower gear levels. The only reason why I don't love Padme is because defensively she's going to struggle a little bit, because it's really easy to kill like Gear 11 or Gear 12 characters. Whereas the nature of this team is you kind of want them to kill Qui-Gon so the Jedi Anakin can blow them up. But the reason I like them even at like a Gear 13 level is because the way that Qui-Gon Jinn's lead works here is that he's translating speed into offense 30 times. So you don't need to have Jedi Anakin at Relic 7 actually dish out a lot of damage. He can be Relic 0. His offense, or his physical offense, will be in the dirt. Like, he won't have the 7,000. It'll probably be like 4,000 to 5,000. But if you have him, I don't know, at 250 speed, which is probably a normal one, that is a huge amount of offense that is going to really dwarf anything that he can get here anyway. I mean, this is nice, don't get me wrong, but ultimately you want the speed, or the offense that is being transferred from the speed, and that can be gotten with him being under Relic. And really the rest of the team, it is nice to have Cam at Relics, it is nice to have Mace at Relics, but if you're entirely banking off of Qui-Gon Jinn dying and then Jedi Anakin blowing up the rest of the team, that's a lot of value for a lot of very little investment. I guess that's probably kind of an oxymoron. We're gonna let that slide though. And next up is going to be our Rogue One team. This one I was a little bit stretched on because I've never been able to use this one before it was at Relics due to the profundity its requirements, but I suppose this is an example that you could run into depending on the way you're building up your roster. And the reason why is they do have max health damage through exposes. That's built into a lot of their kits, that, as we've seen previously with the Zori team, that allows you to kill the enemies without having any real offense. One of the other things that's really nice about this team, that particularly the enemy AI does terribly, is you have to kill Adrad. I don't remember if it's in his leadership, it's probably in his unique, but you have to kill Adrad before Jin can be defeated. So yeah, Jin also can't be defeated while Admiral Raddus is active. And what typically happens, not always, but what typically happens is they will sit there and wail and wail and wail on Jyn Erso until she's sitting at 1% health and just stays there, while Adrad is just a ticking time bomb that eventually is going to use Hope and destroy the enemy team because it prevents healing, protection, and then you land 2 or 3 exposes and any character is pretty much dead, assuming they aren't immune to max health damage. So it has a lot of viability at lower gear levels. Again, I don't really know how relevant that is, because if you farmed Adrad, you probably didn't do it because it's a good low relic or low gear value. You probably did it so that you could take him to R9 to get profundity, but he's worth mentioning. And last and possibly least is going to be Bad Batch. So the reason why I don't love Bad Batch here, are they good before Relics? Yes, certainly. For the same exact reasons that we pretty much picked every other team. They do have quite a bit of turn meter built into their kits, but they also do max health damage based off of their debuffs, of which they have a lot, so they're able to kill. They have a lot of recovery. They do have foresight, so they can avoid hits. There's a decent amount of survivability there, even before you start getting them to have all these defensive stats that end up coming in with Relics. But the one reason I'm not super advising this team to everyone out there is because while they don't need Relics to be useful, they do need a ton of Cairo. And I guess, I mean, even if you swap out Omega for Shock, which is acceptable, Shock also requires a ton of Kairos. I guess she's at least a required character for something else, so maybe you save yourself some resources in some fashion. But it's still a really big ask. I mean, maybe maybe probably build up Bad Batch just to go after Lord Vader, and then by then you need relics, so I'm not really sure how relevant this is. But they don't stop being a team that does function super well without having to be at relics. They can have damage, they can have survivability, they can have turn meter, all those things that they need to get going to take down enemy teams. So again, while a lot of these will function better at relics, they have still a ton of value before they even get there. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if there's another team out there that we missed. I know that we cheated a little bit with like Night Sisters, but what other teams out there that just need like one relic character and suddenly they're valid? But until the next time, thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.